So why is inflammation seen as the bad guy in the human body? Effectively, inflammation gets a bad rap. It must have a really bad PR team because everyone's all about anti-inflammatory this and anti-inflammatory that. Now obviously, yeah, if you've got an inflammatory disorder where you're getting abnormal inflammation responses in the body, that makes a lot of sense. People talk about dietary elements to do with that as well. But in terms of inflammation in a natural sense, in a normal sense, effectively what it's there for is to heal the body, bring the elements of healing, cytokinins, bradykinin, various different neurochemicals and chemicals brought into the area and the site of injuries where tissue damage is, to heal it. It's also part of the infection related response, the immune system response. So obviously if you think about inflammation in that sense, then it's coming in to do a job, and it's obviously been evolved very, very over a long period of time to do that job. So the question is, why are we trying to muck around with it? If it's designed to do what it's designed to do, which is to heal you and to get rid of infection, then maybe we shouldn't be messing around with it. Now, what does the research show on this kind of subject area? Well, if you look at certain injuries, so we've found that there are certain injuries where anti-inflammatories are used, and they've looked at tendon to bone healing after tendon injuries, and they've looked at using anti-inflammatories as part of the treatment modalities there. What they've actually found is by using an anti-inflammatory, it slows down the actual healing of the structure. So basically you're actually worsening the problem, or at least slowing down the recovery of the problem, which isn't good. Now tendon is an interesting concept in itself, because tendon actually doesn't get a lot of blood supply, doesn't get a lot of inflammatory response. It actually is an under-inflaming structure. Now that's where it gets misconstrued. People think, oh, it's under-inflaming, that means it doesn't inflame. It's like, no, it inflames, but it inflames to a level that isn't sufficient for the level of damage that it's got. So that means it can still get really sore, it can still be very painful from inflammation. But remember, inflammation is doing a job. Part of that job is to heal the tissue. The other part is as a protective reflex. So the aim is to make the tendon or whatever structure hurt. So you just don't carry on regardless, making the injury worse. I mean, it's just common sense when you think of it that way. So if you were to then have an injury and then take anti-inflammatories, particularly on a tendon which under-inflames, you're going to slow down its healing, you're going to lower the pain levels, which mean you feel better than you really are, and you're going to go and do too much, and therefore you're going to struggle to get better. Now you can see this response even higher up when you have steroid injections. So steroid injections again are to wipe out the inflammation. So anti-inflammatories lower the inflammation, steroids trying to really get rid of it. And again, if we look at, say, studies that were done on tennis elbow, which is a tendon problem, it showed that they did a short term and a long term. They had a wait and see group, a physio group, and a steroid injection group. In the wait and see group and the physio group, they weren't a lot better in the short term, but the steroid group, lo and behold, felt a lot better. Of course they will. The inflammation has been just obliterated, so their pain levels are going to drop substantially. But then they went back to them a year later, and lo and behold, 1 year later, guess what? The wait and see group, no treatment at all, on average, recovered, right? The physio group, 1 year later, on average, recovered. The steroid injection group, again, 1 year later, on average, not recovered, worse. And that's because the two reasons we mentioned, the slowing of healing and the pain not being, has been diminished, so they carry on overworking the injury, not rectifying any of the reasons behind why they've got the problem. So when we look at it this way, it shows inflammation isn't necessarily the bad guy. Inflammation does a job, it has a role. So I think anti-inflammatories might have a role with certain injuries, and if that role is to be said, it's probably going to be in the early doors of the injury. If you're doing something which then requires anti-inflammatories, or you think it requires anti-inflammatories, and you've been doing it for weeks and months, you're doing too much. You're not listening to your body. You're not rectifying the underlying issues. That is not the way to go. You're mucking around, therefore, with creating damage and getting rid of the thing that gets rid of the damage, or helps to get rid of the damage. So I would say that anti-inflammatories may have a role within normal context. Obviously they do in abnormal context, but they need to be used in a short burst of time in the early doors with certain types of injuries, and therefore don't just blanketly think inflammation is bad, I need anti-inflammatories, because just because you feel better doesn't mean you're getting better. Anyway, that's it for this video, and I'll see you next time.